Have you ever felt the icy finger of death tracing a line down your spine? That night, in the solitary confinement corridor reeking of damp concrete and ancient rot, I stared death right in its bloodshot eyes. A manic death row inmate smashed through his cell door, lunging at me with a jagged, broken iron bar aimed straight for my heart. As I stood there, paralyzed by a terror so thick I couldn't even scream, a dark shadow blurred past me. Crack! A thunderous kick sent the iron bar spinning across the floor. It was Kale, the inmate with the eyes of a lone, predatory wolf. After the guards subdued the attacker, Kale turned toward me. He saw the small, beaded trail of blood on my finger. Without a single word, he gripped my wrist with a bruising strength, brought my finger to his lips, and slowly, deliberately, licked the fresh blood away. His tongue was searing, an electric, possessive touch that made me tremble, not out of fear, but from a sudden, forbidden jolt that ignited my very soul. Hi, I'm Andy. I'm 26 years old. While most girls my age are out enjoying fancy cafe dates and sunsets, I chose to be a doctor at Blackwood Prison, the very navel of hell. My job is to stitch up the carnage after prison riots, but in reality, I was the one feeling imprisoned by the crushing loneliness of this place. The day Kale saved me, he was being disciplined for the fight. When I stepped into that airless cell, I saw his old wounds had reopened, staining his orange jumpsuit a deep, ugly crimson. The head guard was raising a heavy baton, ready to teach him a lesson for his defiance, but I didn't hesitate. I threw myself in front of Kale, my small frame a shield against the violence. He is my patient. No one lays a finger on him while I'm the doctor in charge. I knelt on the freezing, filthy cement floor, my hands shaking, but my resolve unshakable as I began to clean his gashed skin. A single, hot tear escaped my eye and landed on his tattooed hand. In that silence, I saw the permafrost in his eyes finally crack. He began to speak, his voice a gravelly ghost of a sound, telling me how he had blinded his own father to save his mother from a lethal beating. "I don't regret it, Andy," he whispered into the dark. Behind the label of convict, I saw a shattered soul begging for a redemption he didn't think he deserved. Our mandatory medical checkups slowly morphed into stolen, whispered dates in the heart of hell. Kale admitted that the bloody kiss, that first night, was his way of marking me as his, a warning to Silas, the prison's true kingpin, that I was off limits. But Silas wasn't a man who played by the rules of mercy. He orchestrated a frame-up, planting contraband in my bag and making it look like I was smuggling for Kale. The administration went into a frenzy, firing me on the spot and stripping me of my career. On my very last shift, as the guards prepared to escort me out, I pretended to check Kale's pulse one last time. In a split second, I slipped a folded note into his pocket. 09XXXXXXXXX. This is my number. The day you walk out of those gates, I will be there waiting. Don't you ever give up on us. I drove away from that gray fortress with a bleeding heart, watching Kale's silhouette through the rearview mirror as he roared and hammered against the bars of his cage.
I'm Kale. I'm 27 years old. I just walked out of those freezing iron gates after spending 5 years rotting in a cell, a sentence I served for a mistake I call saving my mother. I stood outside that prison with Andy's tattered note, waiting for 24 agonizing hours under the scorching sun and the driving rain, but she never showed. I dialed her number until my fingers were numb, but the line was dead. My heart turned to ash. I convinced myself that the beautiful doctor had finally woken up from her fantasy, that she was terrified of my blood-stained past and had chosen to erase me. I started working as a bouncer at a grimy underground bar, living a life of hollow violence. Every night, I drowned my soul in whiskey just to numb the sting of her betrayal, to forget the kiss through the bars that I thought was my destiny. It was a night of driving, relentless rain, the kind that turns the city into a blur of neon and gray. I was walking home through a narrow alley when something grabbed my ankle. A thin, skeletal hand shot out from a sewer grate, gripping me with a desperate, bone-deep strength. I lunged back, ready to strike, But then I saw it, shaking fingers tracing a single word into the mud on the pavement. Help. My intuition screamed at me. I pried open the heavy iron cover with an adrenaline-fueled roar, and then my breath left me. There, in the stinking, lightless abyss, was Andy. Her face was gaunt, a ghostly pale, and her leg was shackled to a rusted pipe. She hadn't abandoned me. Silas had been released early and kidnapped her on the very day she was supposed to meet me, all as a final, sick act of revenge against my soul. She had been rotting in this living tomb for months, all because she dared to love a man like me. Silas emerged from the shadows with a sickening smirk, brandishing a jagged blade. A visceral, life-or-death struggle erupted in the freezing rain. We wrestled in the filth, the sound of our grunts and the impact of bone on bone lost to the howling wind. Silas was cunning. He drove his blade deep into my side, but the agony only fueled my primal rage. I was no longer a man. I was a monster protecting the only light I had ever known. I gripped his throat with a crushing force, channeling every second of my misery into one final, devastating blow. I collapsed into the mud beside Andy, my vision fading into a blur of red and gray. But the last thing I felt was her trembling hands on my face, and the last thing I heard was her voice screaming my name through her tears. I had found her, and if this was where I died, it was a price I was more than willing to pay. When I finally opened my eyes, the smell of rusted iron and the stench of the sewers were gone. In their place was the sharp scent of antiseptic and the gentle golden warmth of the morning sun. Andy was right there, sitting by my side, her hand gripping mine so tight it felt like she was anchoring me to this world. Her face was still gaunt, but her eyes were glowing with a light I thought had been extinguished forever. We were finally, truly free. I looked at the old scar on her finger, the place where I had licked away her blood on that first night, and managed a weak smile. "You finally brought me home," I whispered. Our love began in blood and chains, but it ended in freedom and an unbreakable bond. Thank you for listening to our journey. If you believe in the power of a love that can survive hell itself, please follow and rate us 5 stars. I'll see you in the next one.